It has been months since we've done a hot takes video. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know I used to do these every week, but I feel like they started getting a little stale with some of the same takes coming in every week. But given we haven't done one of these in a while, the Bulls season is kind of turning around, yet at the same time, still a middle of the road team. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts, see where your head is at in assessing this roster. And so I asked for you guys to give me some of your hottest takes on the channel community tab. And we've got some good ones, and it was a lot of takes, so apologies if I don't get to yours, but I'll try to get to as many of these as I can. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Real quick, I don't do this often, but if you like this type of content, whether you've been watching for a while or just starting to tune in, consider subscribing, as about 53% of you watching are not subscribed. Helps me grow the channel and deliver quality content to you guys, and I would really appreciate it. Now, this first take comes to us from Iowa All Day. If Zach continues to play the way he has been, and although it's only been 3 games, so he could go back to his old ways, but if he continues to play the way he has been, I think we should keep him. If he's playing defense, passing, facilitating, and not just playing ISO, I definitely think we should keep him, but I also wouldn't be mad for a full rebuild. So I did get a lot of similar takes like this, things like maybe the Bulls should keep Zach. If he can play like this version of Zach can unlock what the Bulls need, all of that. And while I do agree that yes, if Zach is going to keep playing like this, locked in and engaged, not even just on defense, which has been huge because we don't see that often from Zach, but not just on defense, on offense as well. People forget Zach leading up to that trade request, if you want to call it that, he looked checked out on this team. Was taking bad shots, playing selfish basketball, not getting guys involved. But if Zach can be this engaged, a focused player, and doing whatever he can to help this team win and buying into what this team is trying to do, buying into the style of basketball they want him to play, then yes, I agree, things need to be reconsidered as it relates to trading him, but also just for the future of this team. That said though, the biggest thing that gives me pause in all of this is that I can't shake the fact that Zach wanted to be traded. He made it clear he wanted to go elsewhere. And while I'm a believer in people changing, and obviously when you start winning, that changes a lot of things, but Zach more or less said he's done here. And unless he makes it clear to the front office and the coaching staff, hey, you know what? I was in a bad way to start the season. I wasn't playing well. The team was losing. I reacted in the heat of the moment. I do still want to be here. I'm committed to this team and will do whatever is needed to help the team win. Until that happens, and hey, maybe it already has in private, but until that happens, it's hard for me to believe that we won't eventually see Zach going back to his old ways, because keep in mind, this is still a really small sample size. And as I've said before, that second game against Charlotte wasn't anything to write home about. It's this most recent game against the Rockets that has suddenly had everyone's opinion change about Zach, and it just seems a bit reactionary to me, as if we'd forgotten everything that happened at the start of the year. This next one comes to us from Logan Chestnut. Coby White is a top 10 point guard in the NBA. Oh man. It's a good hot take, definitely hot, but not absurd. I don't know if I would put Coby in the top 10 yet. That's not to say that he can't eventually get there, but there are just so many good point guards in the NBA. I mean, you have Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox, Steph, Dame, Luka, SGA, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey. I mean, those are just some of the guys that come off the top of my head, and that's almost 10 right there. I don't think we can put Coby top 10. He's not far off. I think in the top 15 would be more realistic. But again, he's young. He's having a breakout season. If he continues on this progress that we've been seeing, he'll be right on his way, no question. I would predict by next season, as long as he keeps this up, he'll be a top 10 point guard in the NBA. Speaking of predictions, if you like making predictions and maybe winning a little money on the side, also getting free money, I might add, then you're going to want to hear this offer from Underdog Fantasy, the sponsor of this channel. For those that aren't familiar with Underdog, let me tell you about the app and my personal favorite that I use on the app, NBA Pick'ems. With Pick'ems, you can pick higher or lower on most players' stats and win money based on the ones you get right. You can pick higher or lower, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night if you do 5 Pick'ems and you get them all right. So if you think Coby White is going to score more than 21 points against the Warriors, which based on the way he's been trending is more than likely to be the case, select higher and you can win some money. And guys, they're offering viewers of this channel an exclusive offer. If you use the promo code BULLCENTRAL, you'll get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Who doesn't want free money, right? It's really that easy. It's also a great way to support the channel as well. I'll leave a link to the site and the code in the description if you're interested, and let me know what picks you guys end up making. Next, we've got David Jiwa 555. Keep Zach and trade DeMar, which is what I've been saying all along. So I figured we would get some of these types of takes after the game against the Rockets. Here's the thing, and I'll go back to what I said earlier. It all depends on whether Zach wants to be here. If Zach still wants to be traded, then no. Why would you keep him? Keep him around to see if you can still convince him to stay? Like, we still don't know if this quote-unquote new version of Zach, where he's engaged and playing well on both ends of the floor as a team player, is just to increase his trade value to ensure that he gets traded. Zach and his agent, they know the market for him was pretty dismal when he was sitting on the bench with that injury, and they likely knew that there was a world where the Bulls wouldn't move him if they couldn't get much for him in return. So while I love the way that Zach has been playing, I love that he's playing more team basketball, I also don't know if he's doing this for the team or if he's doing this to ensure that he gets traded. He's incentivized right now to not only play better for himself, but also for his trade value. I'd like to think that he's just doing what he can for his teammates and trying to help the guys win, but we don't know. We don't know what his motives are. And then as far as DeMar DeRozan, I mean, again, a lot of this is reactionary because after Zach went down and DeMar was playing at a high level, being more deferential and getting the most out of the young guys, people were talking about, man, we should keep DeMar as this veteran leader for the young guys. People were talking about extending him. Again, a lot of this is reactionary, prisoner of the moment. That said, though, yeah, I do still think it would make sense to trade DeMar if you can get decent value for him on an expiring contract because he's not going to be a part of the Bulls' long-term plans. And if he's not going to take you to the next level, then what are we doing here? This next one comes to us from AvoidCoo. Okay, but they say the only way I see the Bulls being a fun team is if you trade Caruso for picks, DeMar for Cam Johnson and a first-round pick, draft Bronny, Bulls need draft capital and some hope for the future. They middle of the road again. Well, I won't deny that the Bulls need draft capital for the future and a bit of a retool to this roster, but yeah, this isn't the way to do it. I've said many times, I don't think it's worth trading Caruso unless you get a sizable haul for him in the form of multiple first-round picks, and I just don't see any team offering that much for Alex Caruso. And if you can't get that for him, then it's not worth it. DeMar for Cam Johnson in a first, I mean, why would the Nets ever do that? Why would effectively a rebuilding team, they're one of the biggest struggling teams in basketball right now, why would they trade away one of their younger players and a pick for DeMar on an expiring contract? Just doesn't make any sense for the Nets. And then drafting Bronny, I mean, what, so you can get maybe one good season of LeBron when he's 40 and then have a player you likely can't build around for the future? It'll sell tickets for sure, it'll get butts in the United Center. I'm sure ownership would love going after Bronny for that reason alone, but no, I don't think that this move makes the Bulls suddenly a fun team again. Next, we've got this one. It's the medical department that's holding this franchise back the most. The history of our players being injured is no coincidence, but a lack of skill from the medical staff. This is an odd one because while I think you could have a case for this in years past, but more recently, aside from Lonzo Ball, the Bulls have actually been very lucky when it comes to health and being very durable. Last season, the Bulls had no major injuries to their core. So far this season, it's only been Zach who's missed some time and now Torrey Craig. For being a relatively older team compared to the rest of the NBA and keeping their big three mostly healthy in that span is actually pretty impressive. And then the injury to Lonzo, I mean, that has just kind of been a freak thing that no one could have expected, nor was it anything they could really control. I don't blame the medical staff for that. Unfortunately, Lonzo Ball has just always been an injury-prone player since entering the NBA, and that was a risk the front office took by bringing in a player with his injury history. Next, we've got give Coby his keys. Nice. The take is Billy Donovan's biggest weakness in his coaching is he can't handle balancing a team with multiple stars. I don't know if I would say that's his biggest weakness though, because I feel like surprisingly, he's okay at managing star egos. The biggest weakness is that he lets his stars do too much and doesn't have the backbone to tell them when they're doing something wrong. He relies on the stars too much to just take over games when they need it, and to me, seems like a bit of a pushover in having those hard conversations with star players. He's a player's coach, which is good sometimes, but it can also be your downfall when it leads to players feeling entitled to do whatever they want. Next, we've got the Jude 23. Bulls do nothing at the trade deadline. You know, I was talking about this with my guy Salim from the Bulls Gold podcast on the channel. Check out the pod if you missed it, by the way. But I was talking about how it wouldn't shock me if the Bulls simply did nothing at the deadline. I mean, we've seen them do it before. They didn't make any moves the last two deadlines, even though everyone knew something, even a small move on the margins needed to happen, but to no avail. And honestly, with the way the team is playing, slowly making their way back up in the standings, they're back in the play-in picture, guys are starting to play better together, the vibes are good, and also given the fact that the Bulls, the front office anyway, always seem to overvalue their players when it comes to the trade market, I can see them finding themselves in a situation where they say, we're not really getting good offers. Why trade these guys when we're playing better? Why not stick with the continuity approach? Let's see how these guys finish out the season and regroup and assess in the offseason. It honestly would not shock me. I'll be pissed because even though the Bulls are playing better, they still need to make changes to this group. Still a lot of holes and weaknesses in the roster, so I'll be pissed if they do nothing, but it really wouldn't surprise me if that ends up being the case. It is a good hot take though, because I feel most people assume the Bulls will, no question, make some kind of splash at the deadline, and to that I reply, not so fast. We know how this team has operated before at the deadline. Anyway guys, I'm going to end it there for this edition of Your Bulls Hot Takes. Keep firing away the takes. I'll try to get more of these out there more often. Bulls are taking on the Warriors tomorrow. Be on the lookout for the post-game video. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.